Matt Rinaldi.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it, and it's great to be here. Thank you for inviting a few has-been legislators to come talk to you today. No, it's an honor to still be close friends with both these guys. We work so closely together, and I remember late at night I'd be talking to Senator Huffine saying, "Hey, will you push this amendment for me in the Senate? It's a little controversial." And he said, "Yeah, sure, I'll do it." And I called Jonathan and go, "I can't believe he's going to do it." So it was always a great pleasure working with these guys. And where's Leach? You here? Yeah. Oh, cool. Yeah, and Jeff Leach, of course, we served with on the Freedom Caucus as well. Since you're the only sitting legislator, and now we can't blame Stiglin for the acts of the legislature, one of the common themes of my speech is going to be, I got a lot of problems with you people, and now you're going to hear about it. And I mean that in a loving way. But, no, listen, I was thinking about what to say today. We're at such a time in our country's history that I think will be remembered for a very, very long time. And it's not going to be remembered fondly. I'm thinking of what, as a legislator, you want to deal with the problems that people face day to day. And usually that's, how are my kids going to school? What are they learning? Is my retirement income safe? Am I going to be able to find work? Am I going to be employed? And that's changed. It's changed significantly over the last year. Now, what I hear from people and what they're worried about is the governor's closed my business for the better part of the last year. When am I going to be able to feed my family again? I put my entire retirement income into 2 bars. It's the bar owner down the street committed suicide because his bar was closed. Is my neighborhood going to be burned by Black Lives Matter rioters? And if I defend my family from those same people, is the Democrat DA in my area going to prosecute me? Am I going to be prosecuted for my speech over the next year? Or because I have doubts that an election was conducted fairly, is that now considered a crime? Or will that be considered a crime? Will I be able to get news from Fox News in the future, or is the FCC going to shut it down like the Washington Post editorial today suggested? It's a whole different sort of issues, which makes why we're here so important. The GOP here in Texas has been in power for nearly 20 years, and I've spent the better part of those 20 years complaining that they aren't doing enough for things like the Second Amendment, securing our border, in terms of life, and you've heard us talk about that before, but I feel like this is different, and you're going to hear about some of those issues, and you're going to hear a lot of that complaining, and you're going to hear that the selection of the new speaker was a mistake because he won't bring those issues to the forefront. We're not going to get a lot done. But I'll let them talk about that. I want to talk about 3 big issues that are concerning me. And that's the COVID response, BLM rioting, and free speech assaults. Because I think those are the big 3. And I'm not hearing enough elected officials talk about those 3 things at all. If I told you 1 year ago that your governor would put you under house arrest, restrict your travel, prevent you from working, keep your kids out of school, and force you to wear a muzzle in public, all because of a virus comparable to the flu for a vast majority of people, would you believe me? No. But now, with the leadership of our governor, our party, has established the principle that we can suspend your constitutional liberties to prevent the spread of germs. That's surely not something that's going to be changed in the future or used against us in the future. It's now been almost a year. Almost a year our constitutional liberties have been suspended by our own party, in our own state. Think about that. Texas is still closed, still masked. South Dakota, North Dakota, and Florida, a comparable sized state to ours, has no COVID restrictions whatsoever, and they're not seeing any negative effect from that. Any negative effect at all. But yet we don't follow them. We still think status quo is to restrict your constitutional liberties, so Governor Abbott's going to keep doing it. And it's absurd. I've lived in Democrat states before. I've lived under Democrat governors, Massachusetts, Connecticut. They never locked me in my house before. They never forced me to wear a muzzle when I left the house. Why is my Republican governor doing that? And how is that good for electing liberty-loving Republicans in the future? It's absolutely not. And then we have a vaccine now. Millions are getting the COVID vaccine. There's light at the end of the tunnel for this problem, which is a very real problem.
I'm not getting it.
No vaccine!
Thanks for the easy applause line. Listen, whether you choose to get it or not, there's reasons to, there's reasons not, depending on your age level, your risk, whatever. That's a different issue. We have light at the end of the tunnel. We do, for people who are afraid and for people who want to be protected. But still, nothing from Greg Abbott, no end game, no timetable, nothing about freeing Texas. When is Governor Abbott going to free Texas? When? We have nothing. We don't even have a goal in the future. We have nothing. Is this going to happen indefinitely or forever? We don't know. And where are the Republicans asking him? Governor, you are not saying anything. When will you free us? That's what I want to know. I hear nothing. And then BLM rioting. If you remember this summer, it was when you worried that your suburban neighborhood was going to be invaded and burned. Yeah, very real concern that I didn't think I'd deal with in America.
Mostly peaceful.
Yeah, mostly peaceful. Well, it depends on what your political views are when you're actually doing the burning, apparently. I mean, we traveled from, I had to actually drive because I have a 3-year-old. And if my 3-year-old doesn't want to wear a mask on a plane, I get put on a no-fly list. So we actually had to drive to North Carolina for my mother's funeral. And I remember we had to drive through Memphis and Nashville. So I had to actually bring firearms in the car because that was when BLM was demonstrating and blocking highways and dragging people out of cars. And one of the things we discussed was, well, if we ever had to use it, what would happen to us?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing.
Would throw you under the bus. That's what would happen.
Well, nobody would say anything, and of course they're protected by their political views, and I'm not, because I'm fighting them, or trying to defend my family. And, you know, where are the Republicans? That's the thing. Black Lives Matter rioters were burning neighborhoods. People were scared. And what were the Republicans doing? They were passing laws recognizing Juneteenth as a national holiday and trying to tear down monuments. Why? They adopted their causes and tried to placate them. But, on the flip side, what happened when we had a mob at the Capitol? And their political views were different. Well, before violence was speech this summer, now speech is violence. They're investigating those who even attended this rally. And by the way, violence is wrong, both cases. But look at the disparate treatment. They're investigating those that even attended the Capitol rally. They're arresting those that were merely seen in the Capitol. If you had done that this summer, you would have millions of people in jail if they applied the same standard. And after months of riots, what did we do? We did nothing. I mean, I'm happy they fought the attempt to defund police, but other than that, we didn't do anything to reform Democrat DAs, to allow ourselves the right to protect ourselves, aside from Ron DeSantis in Florida, and that becomes a common theme, who did address those issues. We didn't do anything. You know, after months of riots, we didn't do anything. After one riot on the other side, Democrats impeached Trump, kicked him off social media, sent dozens of people to federal prison, and instituted a military occupation of D.C. for the inauguration. You think people are fighting a little different battle on our side versus their elected officials? I mean, think about it. Democrats right now are calling elected officials who disputed that maybe the election wasn't run fairly. even disputed it, insurrectionists and seditionists. How dangerous is that? I mean, everybody in this room is under threat from rhetoric like that. And guess what? I don't know the level of fraud in the election, but I can tell you the election was rigged when Republicans across the country in office allow widespread mail-in balloting to be instituted by executive order using COVID as an excuse for it.
Yeah, right.
So from now on, Democrats can unilaterally change election law because COVID, and anyone who even challenges it is subject to prosecution. And what do we hear? Nothing.
Joe Biden is my president.
Yes. For the first time in our lives, free speech is about to be criminalized, and our elected officials are notably quiet. Now, should we at least count on Texas to protect us? And here's something I have a big problem with, considering the time we're living in right now. The Texas legislature is actively promoting Democrats who are using this rhetoric to leadership. They are. And I hope they won't do it this time, but we just voted to actually allow Democrats committee chairmanships, unlike in DC. Let me go through some of the current committee chairs, or I guess outgoing committee chairs who were appointed by the Speaker Bond, and what they said in the past couple weeks. Joe Moody was appointed by Speaker Bond and President Pro Tempore and Vice Chair of the Powerful Calendars Committee. He called Ted Cruz a coward and accused him, Ken Paxton, and other unnamed conservatives of being directly responsible for the mass murder of 23 El Pasoans and outright domestic terrorism. Chris Turner, chairman of Higher Ed, called for the legislature to investigate and impeach Ken Paxton for, quote, playing a role in insurrection by filing an election lawsuit and raising issues of election fraud, and also joined others calling Ted Cruz, Ken Paxton, Beth Van Dyne, and a majority of our Republican congressmen seditionists for demanding election integrity. Rafael Anchia, International Relations and Economic Development, supported accusations that Chairman Allen West was calling for a violent insurrection by opposing mandatory gun buybacks. Also accused President Trump, Ted Cruz, and anyone who questions whether there's election fraud as insurrectionists, seditionists, and participating in domestic terrorism, and said they should be arrested and prosecuted. Terry Canales, Transportation Chair, demanded Ted Cruz be removed for engaging in an insurrection or rebellion and fan the flames of BLM violence at the same time by saying if the protesters in the Capitol were black or brown, quote, they would be leaving in body bags. Meanwhile, and then of course, outgoing chair, who will not be a chair this time, Pancho Navarez, Homeland Security and Public Safety Chair, Vice Chair of Mass Violence Prevention and Community Safety, which we remember, and I definitely remember, actively encouraged a mob that stormed the Texas Capitol, shut down legislative proceedings while legislators' spouses and children were present, shut down legislative proceedings and assaulted police, and then assaulted a Republican legislator, this one, and threatened to attack the legislator when he was with his pregnant wife. So all of those individuals were Democrats appointed to chair powerful committees in the Texas House, and they were saying all of this stuff last week, and this week the Texas legislature voted to allow Democrats to be committee chairs of powerful committees again.
Way to go, Leach! Leach!
Listen, yes, it's frustrating to me. It very much is frustrating to me that they did that. Let me tell you a story, okay? I don't know if you guys, story, Julius Caesar? Okay. Julius Caesar, when he was 25, before he ever took office, before he was ever, in government, he was 25 years old. He was captured by pirates. He was held on an island, and the pirates wanted to demand a ransom of 20 pieces of silver. It's like $600,000 nowadays. Pretty good amount. Caesar was upset and castigated him because the ransom was too low. He told them they should demand 50, he was worth that much more. So the pirates sent his colleagues off the island to go gather the silver, and it took 38 days. during that 38-day period, Caesar mingled with the pirates. He actually played games with them. They became good friends. They palled around. He would rehearse speeches to give, and the pirates would critique him on his delivery. I mean, but one thing he did every day as they were palling around was he said, when I get off this island, I'm going to come back and I'm going to crucify every one of you. And they thought it was a joke. They didn't believe him, because here's this person who's palling around with them, told him they were going to kill him and crucify him when he comes back on the island. Well, you know what happened? Well, they paid the ransom. They released Julius Caesar, and apparently the pirates didn't think he was actually going to come back because they were still on the island. When Julius Caesar had gathered in a navy to come back, and he killed and crucified every single one of the pirates that held him. It's like what's happening here. I see pictures of legislators palling around with Democrats, and meanwhile they're calling for us to be jailed. Jailed. They're giving them powerful positions, and they're telling us exactly what they want to do. They want to criminalize our speech. They want to put people who believe what we believe in jail. They want to take our elected leaders and eject them from the Senate. And we're allowing it, and we're not doing anything, and they're telling us exactly what they're going to do. This needs to stop.
Yes.
Yes.
And it isn't going to stop with our elected representatives, because they're oblivious to this.
Yep.
And they're voting against us.
Yep.
It's going to start with you guys, and that's why we're here. I can tell you, 70 million Americans believe what we believe, and we feel like we're surrounded. To be honest, a lot of us are scared. Think about the Trump election. Americans elected a personally flawed former Democrat simply because he told us he would fight for us. To those legislators who want to get reelected, that's how you get reelected. You know what? Make people feel safe. Let us know you're going to fight for us too. There's a lot of people scared. I told you why they're scared. Do that job. And when they don't do their job, that's why we have to come in. We got to show them how to do that job, and we got to have a voice. They have a big voice, and it's a shame they're not using it. But all of us together, we have a voice too. So thank you for being here. Thank you for fighting for my family.